Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana 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 Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava 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 Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Shri Radhanath ki, Shri Shintai Gaura Hari ki, Shri Girish Govardhan Hari ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Shri Shintai Gaura Premanande. So thank you so much for joining us this morning and for the opportunity to serve by these discussions on Srila Prabhupada's pastimes from the Transcendental Diaries. Om Gyanatmirandasya Ginanginashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I also pray for all your blessings. To do justice to these wonderful pastimes this morning, the setting is New Vrindavan, West Virginia. This is in the United States, and it's the farm community that was established by Kirtananda Swami. So we're starting Volume 3. This is Chapter 1, June 21st, 1976. Srila Prabhupada's arrival caused quite a stir in the small Pittsburgh airport. Our fellow passengers looked on with obvious bemusement as Kirtananda Swami and a group of 40 or 50 devotees gathered around the boarding gate, offering him beautiful flower garlands and fanning him with peacock feathers. Happily oblivious to anything but Srila Prabhupada's presence, the devotees chanted and danced all the way out to the waiting car. Their attire offered a hint of things to come, with their dhotis, kurtas and saris matched in some cases with large rubber farm work boots. So this is a small rural town. They'd obviously never seen anything like this before. And of course it's very nice to receive the spiritual master in this way, because he's a representative of Krishna, and we would certainly do our best to receive Krishna, and it creates a good impression actually to the public that we have this much reverence for the Lord, for our spiritual master. It automatically creates a mood of reverence within an onlooker as well. But what's also important here is that these devotees, although they were obviously involved in chores around the farm, they were wearing their full devotee regalia. They were dressed in dhotis and kurtas and saris. So we may sometimes complain about having to come to the temple, especially if it's very hot or rainy, sari, traditional gear. Can we imagine in these fairly physically intense services? Right? So they are actually setting the example that this is possible. It's not just possible, but they're comfortable, they're happy. They're extremely happy actually. So before we say that they're a little bit maybe too much, we have to remember that everything in devotional service is about creating the right consciousness. Everything. Every aspect of what we do is about influencing our consciousness towards the transcendental. And dress is part of that. It's a huge part of that. Srila Prabhupada gave us the example many times that a policeman in their uniform is conscious of being a policeman, more so than if they were not wearing the uniform. And in the same way, when we are dressed as devotees, when we have tilak on, when we're out there, we're more conscious of being good representatives of Krishna than otherwise. So it's all about a cultivation of consciousness. And if we realized how much our consciousness is bombarded by the wrong kinds of stimuli all the time, we'd understand why all these ways have to come together to influence us towards remembering Krishna. We're not aware of it at all. How much situated we are in the material consciousness. And yet consciousness is the single most important aspect of anyone's life, because it decides where we're going after death. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatayante kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya saratat bhava bhavitaha. Whatever you remember, whatever's in your consciousness, you will attain. So it's a determinant practically of eternity, and we take it so lightly. So consciousness is going to be our theme throughout the class today, and it must be something that we are aware of all the time, how we can make sure that our consciousness is orientated towards Krishna as much as possible. Although it was a 90-minute drive to New Vrindavan, the ride was comfortable, and as we progressed smoothly along the highway, Prabhupada kept up a running conversation. He reflected on the fallen condition of modern man, telling Kirtananda Maharaj his comparison of the dogs running on 4 legs and man's running on 4 wheels. Right? So the truth is that modern civilization is no better than the dogs in one sense, that the dogs also don't know where they're going after death. They have no consciousness of actually what's going to happen to them from minute to minute, and no matter how much we try to control our lives and manage everything, we don't know either. Every moment that's unfolding is a mystery to us until it actually happens, and we're about as helpless as the dogs. If we think about it in our regular lives, we consider somebody very short-sighted if they were only concerned about the meal they have in front of them and they weren't worried about how they were going to secure their meal the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year. Right? We think that they hadn't planned ahead enough and that, frankly, they were being foolish. But that's exactly what modern civilization is like, because they're planning only for now, even without certainty of being able to control that now, and they have absolutely no idea or understanding of what's going to happen in the eternity that's stretching out in front of them. Right? It's completely irresponsible. He said that the only way to save them, that's civilization, was to start with the basics, and then after some time, when they become a little purified, give some philosophy. Right? Because civilization being at this pretty much low level, we can't just throw everything that's required for them in spiritual life all at once. He reminded Kirtananda that this had been his program right from the beginning. You have all got this experience. This is the only way. I started this movement on this determination. I'll give them prasadam, nice chanting, and they will not come. They must come. This was my determination, and I began with this. So this is the only way. Give them chance. No talk. Please come. Chant and dance with us and take Krishna Prasadam and go home. So it's a perfect formula. It worked when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually started it, because of course the Supreme Lord gives us the way, shows us the way, gives us the Yuga Dharma. He demonstrated by his personal example about how effective chanting, dancing and prasadam was, and Srila Prabhupada replicated that in the West. Right? The interesting thing is, it's not the same way as marketing, right, in the right way. There's no analogy that we can compare that to, actually, because these are spiritual processes. The chanting is completely transcendental, and so is prasadam. That's why it worked, because it was delivered by the Acharya with the purest motivation. These spiritual techniques worked. It wasn't that it was just applicable to that group of people, it was marketed well, it was advertised in the right way. It doesn't work like that. It was able to touch the soul because it was delivered by a pure devotee. And it can touch the souls of any other people, animals, even things, as long as we are delivering it on the order of the Acharya as he gave it to us. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is going to make a point of in the next paragraph. He was well aware what he was trying to do, right? Even in such a terribly fallen material consciousness, he was trying to transplant transcendental consciousness. But because of his purity, he was able to do that. He was literally able to make the transcendental manifest. And there were many processes at the time that were also claiming the same thing. In fact, even a form of mantra that was called transcendental meditation. It was quite bold of them to call it that. But there was nothing transcendental about it because it didn't achieve what Srila Prabhupada achieved. So you can put labels on things, but the actual result will be seen in whether someone's consciousness can be transformed. And that's the hardest thing to do, to actually change someone's consciousness. So this is how potent prasadam is, chanting and dancing is, and the consciousness of the acharya and those who follow in his footsteps. Kirtananda reflected that it was just 10 years ago since he had first met Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave one of his endearing little sideways nods of assent. Yes, I never said that. You have to give this up. You have to do this. Never said. Then gradually, Chetadarpana Marjanam. When the heart becomes cleansed, then little. There is no hopelessness. Right? He means no one is so hopeless, no one is so fallen, no one is so much like the dogs that they can't be saved. When the heart becomes cleansed, then little. There is no hopelessness. So many people have come, and they are coming. Both black, white, everyone is coming. But you cannot expect that 10% people will come. That is not possible. But even 1/4% people come to this, then it will be successful. Compared to the American population, what percentage we have got? Still, they have made some impression. The Hare Krishna movement. So, Srila Prabhupada is saying that in the ordinary world, we compare numbers. And we may think, well, okay, he introduced this process, but compared to the mass of the American population, how many devotees of Krishna did he actually make? But we have to look at this in terms of quality, that he transformed the consciousness of so many people. How many other movements, self-help gurus, teachers, influencers in any way can actually transform consciousness? That's not an easy thing to do, and that is not a question of quantity, that is a question of quality. So the fact that he was even able to transform as many persons as he did, that was a marker of the success of the Krishna conscious movement. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is making the point here. Because it's very difficult to transform the consciousness of people in the modern day towards spirituality. Right? They're so heavily influenced by anyone and everyone towards the material consciousness. Right? I was watching some children, and they'll do anything that their friends are doing. Right? Anything, even if it's silly, even if it's not good for them. Right? And as we get older, the influences become even more pervasive. It's social media, and God, we know how many silly things there are out there. And people are just imitating it without even thinking. So to break through that extremely covered consciousness, it's not easy. So Srila Prabhupada performed literally a modern miracle by being able to do that. And again, the power to do that is there in the process he's given us, as long as we follow his formula. Because this is what he's saying, that he's given us the formula, it worked, and gradually the heart will become cleansed. You start with the chanting, the dancing, the feasting, and then the heart becomes cleansed, and more of the Krishna consciousness process can be introduced. Literatures are selling, and they are appreciating the learned circle. It takes some time, but if we stick to our principles and do not make any compromise and push on in this way, I have given you instruction, it will never stop. It will go on. It will never stop. At least for 10,000 years it will go on. So now we may comment that Srila Prabhupada himself, he's stated that he adjusted the process. He didn't give everything to the American population. He just gave them chanting, dancing, and prasadam. But now he's saying, stick to the formula. I've given you instruction. Right? Don't make any compromise. So the acharya, he can decide what compromise can be made. He decided that this is what you give two persons in the beginning of their spiritual lives. We follow that. We don't make a compromise on what he's given us. He can make the compromise, he knows Krishna. So in the beginning we do as he did, and we give them chanting, dancing, prasadam. So easy and it's so wonderful. And then as they become purified, he promises, then we give them more. right? Again, according to his instruction. And when we do that, he says it will never stop. It will go on. Right? No matter what happens, we don't have to be worried about this, the future of this movement. It will go on for the next 10,000 years. So Lord Chaitanya did this. This process worked 500 years ago. It will work 10,000 years into the future. Even if human beings are becoming more and more animalistic, the formula worked for animals in the Jarikanda forest. It will work for any brand of animal like human being. Right? We just need to have faith in what Srila Prabhupada gave us. Right? So there are those who will question, right, the way Srila Prabhupada introduced the Krishna consciousness movement, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did it. It's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has authorized the chanting, the dancing, the prasadam. Right? This is enough. And this movement is meant for these 4th class, 5th class, 10th class men. Not this movement is 4th class or 5th class, so that's important. The chanting, dancing, prasadam, even though it's deceptively simple because people think that it's not authorized and it's not scripturally sound and so on, the movement is not 4th or 5th class. It is meant for, unfortunately, a human civilization that is 4th and 5th class. They are so fallen that they cannot be counted even 3rd class, 4th class. 10th class of men, deliver them. Patita pavana hetu tava avatar. This is a quote from a bhajan in praise of Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incarnation is for delivering these classes of men. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never meant to start this movement for high class brahmanas, sages or saintly persons. No. This class of men for all the fallen. For the all fallen. Don't be disappointed. Go on. Go on. Stick to the principles. When there was no response, I did not know where to live, where to eat. Sometimes at Dr. Mizra's, sometime with some friend somewhere. And I was going to inquire the shipping company when the next ship returning to India. Still, I was renewing my visa. Let us hope. Let us hope. In this way, we started 2nd Avenue in month of July, I think. So this is very sobering about the state of humanity. But as we said in the beginning, if the human society does not have the foresight for eternity, and they're practically like the animals, just eating for now and not really concerned about their spiritual destiny, then they are on that level. And that's why Srila Prabhupada says there are frankly 10th classes of men. Right? He even said once that even the demons in Kali Yuga are low class. He said they were not getting the 1st class demons like Ravana. Today's Vijay Dashami. It's the disappearance day of Ravana, made possible by the lotus hands of Lord Ramachandra. And Prabhupada said that even in Kali Yuga, the demons are 4th class and 5th class. They're not even 1st class demons. So the bottom line is that everything in Kali Yuga is degraded. Right? But the process, the reason why we say the process is not 4th class and 5th class, the process has become stronger in order to make up for our defects. That's the difference. The process is more potent, it's more accessible, it's more merciful. The process has increased in its power and ability to make up for our deficiencies. So even though again we say repeatedly it's deceptively simple, but the chanting, the dancing, the prasadam, the process that Srila Prabhupada is giving us is not less than any other process in the previous ages. It's not less than anything in scripture. It's actually more. It's more because it's carrying us along. Right? It's carrying us from our 10th class state. Right? So this is not futile hope. Right? We have the hope and faith based on the process. That's what we have. It's the fact that the process will do everything. Right? We just need to be, as Srila Prabhupada keeps saying, we just need to go on and be faithful to that process. He recalled the names of the first few young men to join him. Shri Shri Radhanath ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Dikharaj Govardhan Hari ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. He recalled the names of the first few young men to join him. Mukunda had been the first, then Hayagriva and Kirtananda. And there were others who have now left, Jagannath, Ravindra Swarup and Kal. So even though this may happen, right, it's hard, we said, to lift up the consciousness. Sometimes it just may be temporarily transformed, or maybe by the influence of association or all the other things we spoke about that unfortunately drag us into the material nature. Souls may leave after coming in contact with Krishna consciousness, but it does not mean that whatever they have done for Krishna is not to their eternal benefit. All the results of anything that is done for Krishna is going to carry that soul along at some point in future, so it is no loss. We may say, Sri Prabhupada put the effort into so many souls that didn't end up staying. They will reap the reward of what they have done for the Supreme Lord in future. There is nothing material that can guarantee the same kind of result. So it is always to the benefit. It is on the absolute platform, and on the absolute platform there is no loss ever. Kirtananda Maharaj told Srila Prabhupada that some devotee women selling books at the airport today said that it had been the most demoniac day that they had ever had. They were harassed as they sold books. As soon as a traveler stopped to talk to a devotee, some persons were causing problems by telling them not to buy. Maharaj said that we get confused with followers of a Korean so-called spiritual master, Reverend Moon. So Reverend Moon, he claims that Jesus Christ never lived to fulfill his mission, which was to establish the perfect family. They killed him before he got married. That is, they killed Jesus before he got married. So he, this Reverend Moon, has come, and he has all these wives, of course, to set the example, right? At least he used to. Whenever of his disciples would get married, he would first have their wife. Prabhupada shook his head in mild disgust. So this is the juxtaposition between what we've been speaking about the Acharya, and someone who clearly makes things up as they go along. Now it's funny, tragic actually in some ways as well, but at the time there were a lot of people who were following this reverend. And it shows how easily, again, people can be influenced in the material consciousness. To believe people who could come up with these completely ludicrous ideas. So there's a responsibility upon the followers as well. It's not just on the leaders to set the right example, but also the followers to recognize someone who is obviously a charlatan, who has obviously made up a completely ridiculous idea of spirituality that is going to get them actually nowhere. He settled back in his seat to chant on his beads, occasionally interspersing his soft murmur with conversation. He told Kirtananda that he is now on the 12th chapter of the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, exactly halfway through. There is no comparison of this literature, he told him. Kirtananda Maharaj expressed his appreciation. I think before you came, Bhagavatam was unknown. Prabhupada agreed. Unknown, yes. The Ramakrishna Mission published one Bhagavatam commentary. You know that? Farce. These Ramakrishna Mission people have done the greatest harm to the Vedic culture. Of course, it is not taken very seriously, Ramakrishna Mission. So we know that the society does a lot of charitable work, right, which is fine from a social point of view on the platform of goodness. But in terms of helping people achieve transcendental goodness, they've actually done a huge disservice, and this is the reason why Srila Prabhupada is speaking like this, because they propound Advaita philosophy. They propound philosophy that all of the devatas are the same as Krishna, and because they do that, they reduce the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his instructions clearly to surrender to him alone. They teach that we can take to any path, we can follow any of the devatas, in complete contradiction to what Krishna says. Right? Krishna says, Yanti deva prita devan pitrin yanti pitrivataha. You can't get to the same place if you worship all of the various personalities in the Vedic tradition. You can't worship the ancestors and expect to get to Krishna. You can't worship the devatas and expect to get to Krishna any more than you can buy a ticket to Zurich and expect to end up in Delhi. because that's the same mentality. And when you're preparing for Zurich, what are you preparing for? The cold, likely, right? So many other cultural things that are different. And when you go to India, you're preparing for something else. So when you're worshipping the devatas, you're preparing for their kind of worship. The consciousness, which we keep coming back to, is so different. The dress is different, which we said influences the consciousness. The food is different, which we said influences the consciousness. Everything is different. How is your consciousness then going to end up being the same, that you can assimilate yourself into Krishna's planet and Krishna's association and amongst Krishna's associates? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The consciousness of someone who's worshipping the ancestors is attuned towards achieving the ancestors. This is why Krishna says that if you worship these various personalities, you will attain them, right? By your consciousness, by the consciousness you've created. And if you want me, then you worship me. You create consciousness of me. And then you will be certain, because we said whatever you remember at the time of death, you will attain. Right? It's not that you can just think of Krishna at the time of death, even if you have been worshipping any other personality. Because the consciousness that you create through your life is the consciousness that you're going to, more than likely the consciousness that you're going to retain at the time of death. Right? Because again, that's what you wanted throughout life. You wanted the devatas, you wanted the ancestors, so you will get them. Krishna's not going to suddenly decide, okay, at the time of death, I'm just going to give you something else. He respects your independence. So this is a false promise that you can worship anyone, follow any religion, you will achieve the same destination. Right? And by reducing Krishna to the level of those who serve him and love him, the devatas, right, it's committing further the second offense to the holy name, which means that it's going to impair whether these people take to the process of chanting, which means they're not going to be delivered likely. They're not going to get the opportunity to be delivered from Kali Yuga, because the Yuga Dharma, the process that has been given, is chanting and dancing. They're not going to be able to take to it because of making this repeated offense based on what they have been taught. They are giving them, this movement, this mission, Ramakrishna mission, is taking away their opportunity for salvation through the holy names. And that is why Srila Prabhupada is speaking so strongly against it. It's nothing personal, but it is based on the fact that it is unfortunately impacting the spiritual destiny of countless souls who hear this philosophy. I agreed that in the West they were practically unheard of, right? That's the Ramakrishna mission. You made a good point about why, although now thousands of American boys and girls are coming to India, no one is going to the Ramakrishna mission. So what kind of impact has he had? Prabhupada said, but they publicized in India that they have made everyone followers in India. They were doing like that. Vivekananda Road, Vivekananda Square, and rascals, they do not know, they do not inquire even what is Vivekananda's contribution. So Vivekananda was a follower of Ramakrishna. In Vrindavan, they have got hospital and Ramakrishna temple. Who is going there? This is practical example. In our temple, thousands and thousands of foreign boys and girls are coming, and who is going there? It is because actually if they did something, they should at least gone out of inquisitiveness. Oh, where is Vivekananda? Then he made us laugh. Nobody going, he grinned, not even to pass urine there. So the point is that these missions were popular on some level socially because of the charitable work. And because people sort of like that thought that preaching that it's all one in the end, follow any religious process, follow any devata. It sounds very encompassing. It sounds very tolerant, right? And of course, the politics of India at the time, we can understand why this was the teaching of choice. But interestingly enough, if we look on Hinduism as it is, even India as it is, preaching that philosophy didn't unite people more. The actual culture of India, the teachings of what we call Hinduism now, Sanatana Dharma, the actual state of India, they're as fragmented as ever. That philosophy didn't unite them, it didn't bring them together, it didn't create any permanent condition of peace. And the simple reason is that God, right, as the universal Father, the Father of all beings, Aham Bija Pradapita, if you deny His existence through this philosophy, then you deny that unifying factor of all beings. And this philosophy does do away with God. Because if it makes everyone God, then it means that God doesn't really exist. Right? There's nothing special about Krishna if every one of us can actually be Him. If His process is not meant to be followed, because you can just do anything and you can achieve Him. Right? When you recognize the one Supreme Personality of Godhead and you serve Him, then you don't demand service from everyone else. But if you retain your false ego thinking that you can become God, then you do expect service from everyone else. When you don't get it from God, then you change your religion. And then when you're in the other religion, you don't get service from everyone, they don't do as you want, then you get angry. And then we know the consequence from there. So the false ego is perpetuated with these kinds of ideas that we can all become God. Right? Even if it's very innocuous, just realize the divine within. There's no impetus to serve. Right? There's no impetus to become humble, to help others, to be to truly be selfless. Right? Otherwise, we just want. And this is why trying to become God does not unite. It does not unite. It is service. It's devotional service that actually brings everyone together. After a short while, Kirtananda produced some cartons of prasadam from the new Vrindavan kitchens. Puris, sabjis, samosas and various milk sweets. I thought Prabhupada would just try a morsel to oblige the devotees, but to our delight, he enjoyed them. But to our delight, he had me spread out the preparations and he took a little of each. He enjoyed them and encouraged us to take some. So this was my dream, that a place should be there where we can get nice foods, best foods of milk. Right? So he means this farm community. They've produced these items. Krishna is fulfilling our desire. Everything is there. These rascals, they do not know how to live or eat. Intelligence is there. Everything is there. Simply for want of training, they have become rogues. Make them human beings, your countrymen. As we drove into the last few miles into the new Vrindavan countryside, Kirtananda Maharaj mentioned that the local authorities, including the sheriff, were becoming very favorable. A judge who had seen Srila Prabhupada on his last visit still keeps a picture of him on his desk. Now, how's that for a change of consciousness? And that's what the Acharya can do. He said that the local television had agreed to show Yadubhara Prabhu's movie, Spiritual Frontier. Srila Prabhupada is happy to hear about it, but told him, one thing you have missed, how we are preparing all these foodstuffs. In the movie, Kirtananda asked, it was too short how to prepare it. Yes, how from milk in different stages you get this foodstuff. Kachoris, Singara, Sandesh, Rabri. So again, the point about consciousness, that the types of food that we eat influence our consciousness so much, that Krishna explains extensively in Bhagavad Gita what the foodstuffs are and how it can influence our consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada is making the point that if you teach people in this way, that this is going to influence them, right, positively. Right? Milk sweets, they changed many lives, and it's not just the cholesterol levels and the the sugar levels. Okay, it was the purity, and many devotees after taking prasadam, they were transformed. So the cow, it's transforming grass into milk by love, and then when you offer it to Krishna, that's now transcendentally loving, and it's amazing the effect that it has. It's a very powerful preaching tool. He gave a little chuckle, and this chana dal, if fried, if you prepare nicely with little hing and ginger, then it will exactly taste like meat. They'll forget. If you give them without telling them, they will think they're eating meat. So it's very interesting because just following some of the vegan discussions, chickpea is the thing, exactly as Prabhupada said. Right? Vegans use it for so many things. It can be utilized to literally replace meat, just as Prabhupada was speaking to the devotee about I told him that when we were in Los Angeles, Palika had made some bara and it tasted so much like fish that Pusta Krishna Maharaj wouldn't eat it. Prabhupada smiled. With urad dal, you can prepare fishy taste. Someone told me that your Guru Maharaj said that, I asked. Sri Prabhupada laughed. Yes, anyone who's not taking urad dal, he must be taking fish silently or secretly. Okay, so this is because particularly in the Bengali region where Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur come from, fish is very popular. And so if you want to replace it, you're going to replace it with urad dal. And if you're not having the urad dal, you're probably still having the fish. Yeah. So Prabhupada arrives at the temple. ISKCON New Vrindavan, Moundsville, West Virginia. At least 100 adults and children welcomed him at the small, beautiful temple of Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra at Bahulavan. And so they've named the places at this farm after the forests of Vrindavan. A marble floor, cut, polished, and installed by the devotees, handcrafted stained glass windows and exquisitely carved singhasanas all formed a perfect setting for the full moon of Vrindavan, Sri Krishna, and his eternal consort, Srimati Radharani. And in the spiritually vibrant atmosphere, Prabhupada took darshan of their lordships, who were resplendently decorated with local wildflowers. And he sat on a beautiful Vyasasan that was specially made for Srila Prabhupada by artisans in Bombay. So here's a contrast. We said that these devotees are maintaining this wonderful, simple farm atmosphere, right? And they're decorating the deities with flowers, but here we have these beautiful ornamentations in the temple. So how do we reconcile it? Anything can be utilized for Krishna as long as the consciousness is correct, that it's not mine. Tena tyaktena bhunjita magrita kashva shvedhanam. As long as you are completely conscious of the fact that it belongs to Krishna, you can have as opulent surroundings and settings and offerings as possible, because you will not be attached to it and it will not have a negative impact in your devotional service. Right? That is the importance. We just have to keep in mind that consciousness again of who it belongs. After a lively kirtan during which Prabhupada played a gong, he gave a short talk. With obvious affection, he glanced out at his disciples. So after 2 years, I think, I have got the opportunity of seeing you and your Radha Vrindavan Chandra, who is so kind upon you. So real happiness is here. Radha Vrindavan Chandra is staying here and he's pleased with your service. This is the perfection of life. Keep Krishna always with you and serve him sincerely. Then all happiness will come without any endeavor. Now there's another point. How is Srila Prabhupada saying that there's no endeavor when these devotees are obviously working very hard in this temple? Right? We said in the beginning they've got these farm boots on. They're obviously engaged in farm work, and they were responsible for putting this beautiful structure together. They were cutting the marble themselves. It's hard work. And practically the devotees in those days, just like the devotees actually put this temple together, they acquired the skills they needed for whatever they were doing. They didn't hire artisans from the outside. They trained themselves, actually. So there was a lot of work. But the difference is because their consciousness has been transformed, no endeavor that they're performing for the Lord seems like work. Seems hard. Seems like the way we approach any work in the material world, that it's so challenging, that it's so taxing, it's so difficult, it's so troublesome. That's what Srila Prabhupada means. You'll always be busy, you'll always be engaged, but it will not seem like an endeavor. It will not seem difficult. That's the difference when we transform our consciousness. He emphasized that economic development does not increase life's pleasures. Dogs run and we run, but the pleasure is the same. Sex on the street and sex in a luxurious apartment give the same level of enjoyment. So what is the need to make an extra endeavor to advance economically, he asked. If a rich man gets typhoid, it doesn't mean that his suffering will be any less. So trying to improve one's standard of living is not the way to happiness. Actually, there is no improvement, he told us. But we think that we have improved. Rather, we have taken so much risk. Right? So Srila Prabhupada is predicting the fact that with the advancement of civilization, we have added so much more risks onto everything that we do. Right? A simple example, we don't keep anything clean the way we should, so we invent all these cleaning products that seem to be advanced, right? There's so many chemicals in them, and to our conditioned senses they smell nice. But chemicals carry such great risk of developing illnesses, right? Particularly the cancer risk to almost everything. And they're polluting our environments, our water, right? In so many ways there's contaminations. Everything that we do that seems to be an advancement will always have a consequence negatively, right? We're taking risks. So overall, there's no improvements. And that's the reason why there's more and more diseases that are raging in the body and mind than they ever were, right? And that is increasing as well, or decreasing the consciousness of people in general. So there is more unhappiness, more crime, more interpersonal violence, more exploitation. There's more ignorance and more passion and very little goodness anymore. That's a consequence. That requires knowledge, right? Knowledge to understand this, Prabhupada says. But anyone can understand. Suppose I can eat some quantity of food. Even if I'm a millionaire, I shall eat the same quantity. Kirtananda Maharaj gave me so much nice food stuff, but I could only take according to my appetite. 1 puri, 2 samosas, that's all. Everyone laughed as he went on. It is not that Kirtananda Maharaj has given so nice food that I shall eat the whole plate. No, that is not possible. I will have to eat so much as I can eat. So by improving the so-called standard, I shall eat the same proportion as I am able to eat. Not more, not less. And that is destined. When I came to your country, I had no shelter, I had no food, no arrangement, but I was eating. And now I have got so many nice sons and daughters, but I'm eating the same. So when there was nobody to help me, I was eating, and now you are so many to give me satisfaction, I am also eating. So eating is not stopped in any condition. That is arranged by God. So Srila Prabhupada has made this clear to us in so many places, that what is destined for you, you will get. Right? No matter how hard you work, and even if you don't work hard, what is destined to you, you will attain by your karma. Right? And we can see that practically. We can see that practically because some people, they work hard their whole lives. Right? And materially, it seems like they have nothing to show for it. And others, they don't seem to work at all, and they get everything that they want and more. And it is because of this predestination. So we must have that in mind so that we don't work too hard to the detriment of our spiritual practices. But it doesn't mean that we don't work either. Because the whole point of the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna telling Arjuna, do your work. Do your work, because even though I don't have any work to do, I am working. I'm setting the example, you set the example as well. Even though whatever you're meant to have, you will have anyway, you still work. Because as he says, the whole world will be put to ruin. So we still work. We just don't work so hard for things that we're going to get anyway. And we work, we need to develop some intelligence also to understand this, how to not work too hard. But we work sufficiently enough, Lord Chaitanya teaches, that we have enough time for spiritual life. That we have enough time to focus on the eternity. He told us that the Krishna consciousness movement is meant to give a new life to civilization. How to become a servant of Krishna. How to become civilized, basically. If this is done, then everything will come together, will come automatically. He thus encouraged the new Vrindavan devotees to continue serving Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra, saying that it would make their lives successful. Amidst the joyful tones of kirtan, Srila Prabhupada departed the temple and was driven to a house that has been vacated especially for his use. It has a few basic amenities like hot and cold running water and electricity, which are seemingly lacking in other residential buildings of the new Vrindavan community. So now we may think, well, these devotees are working so hard, but what's clear in this last paragraph is that they don't have even these amenities of hot and cold water and electricity that Srila Prabhupada's dwelling has. But the difference is that they have a higher consciousness. For all of their simple living, right, they've developed that higher consciousness. So this doesn't trouble them, just like all the hard work that they are doing doesn't disturb them. So how our work in this world influences us, how our eating influences us, how our living conditions influences us, all depends on what mode those things are in and how it affects our consciousness. And that creates either the suffering or the happiness within us. When we're situated in the level of goodness, as these devotees clearly are, then Srila Prabhupada says we're in a state of illumination, knowledge, and it's conditioned by happiness, real happiness, substantial happiness. And anything else to them is just going to seem superfluous. They understand what real happiness is. Right? From there, the stepping stone is going to be to transcendental happiness. So this is what we need to be aiming for in our own lives. Right? Srila Prabhupada wanted these communities to be set up so that we could all actually learn from what it means to have a simple living and a higher thinking. Because ultimately this is the investment for us in eternity. This is the investment that we need to be making. So thank you all so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki. Are there any questions or comments? Prabhu, anything to add? Can we give you the mic, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we're talking about Acharya can make adjustments. Yes, they can make adjustments, not willy-nilly. But those adjustments are not separate from the desires of Krishna.
Yes.
It's not that, like, it's not in keeping with that, with the sanction of the Lord. Because ultimately, for the Acharya to make that adjustment, he gets that intelligence from Krishna. So therefore, it's not that anybody can just make adjustments, but also at the same time, as you mature in devotional service, then you will be able to see how to apply the different principles without contradicting each other. Like sometimes Prabhupada said, one person, you're a sannyasi, you should travel, and another person, you should be at the temple. You should become a temple president.
Yeah.
So, it's like when one is on that platform, or even if that is not on that platform, on how to preach according to time, place and circumstance is very important for a devotee. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rose, so much. It's such an important point. I was actually reflecting on it as well, because the last class that I gave on these Transcendental Diaries was when Prabhupada was telling the devotees in Toronto not to establish a farm community. He told them, you will not be able to maintain it. And here, he's encouraging them to do it. So it was definitely that he knew when to give these instructions. And thank you so much, Prabhu.
Okay.
Any comments?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
There was an accident in my family. It's working. And in that accident, she left her body recently. And the family members wanted to know from me, what happened? Was it Krishna's arrangement that Krishna caused that accident, or what has happened? How can we explain it to them?
Was the person a devotee?
He wasn't a devotee.
Wasn't a devotee. So the understanding that we have from our teachers, like Prabhu has also taught me this, is that when someone is not personally under the shelter of Krishna, they're not his devotees, then whatever happens to them is their karma. It's whatever they have done in the past. It is sanctioned by the super soul, because nothing moves without his approval. But it was caused by the person. But for a devotee, it's different. Then whatever happens to them is caused by the Lord. Because when you take shelter of Krishna, he takes your karma and he dispenses it according to his how he makes you progress in devotional service. So even then, it's for the betterment of the devotee, even though it may sometimes seem like it's negative from our limited perspective. But that karma is, you could say, being engineered by the Lord in order to make sure that the devotee progresses towards him. Then the Lord is personally responsible for what happens. But otherwise, if someone is not a devotee, then it's not actually caused by the Lord. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Also there in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in the 8th chapter, people living in different times of the day, and then he comes to the point of explaining that either by accident or by arrangement for a devotee, there's no real problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mentioned there.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
So yeah.
Is that
Very,
okay,
very
Prabhu?
important, yeah. Yeah, it's like there are many devotees who died in accidents. One devotee was my cousin, Param Brahma, and he was sort of like, I don't know, anyway, I don't want to give the history of him, but anyway, but he was very sincere in different ways, and then he was initiated in Cape Town. He lived at the Durban temple, initiated at Cape Town, served near the Durban temple, and left his body in Lenasia temple. But he slept on the steering because he was working so hard for Krishna. And he slept on the steering, and then he left his body. And later I was telling Bhakti Charu Maharaj that, and Bhakti Charu Maharaj was just so touched, you could see, he was just so moved by it, by his service. And he served Bhakti Charu Maharaj so well, like very meticulous. He was a good servant. And then later he served Jayadvaita Maharaj, and at that time Jayadvaita Maharaj was in his young days. It's very difficult to serve him. And he served Jayadvaita Maharaj very nicely. And Jayadvaita Maharaj wrote a lovely letter, I think he also wrote to Bhakti Charu Maharaj or to him, and it was put on the notice board on the bottom. Yeah. So sometimes devotees will leave like that. So they may left in like sort of in an accident, but can go back to Krishna because you were serving Lord Jagannath.
Yeah.
It was a Ratha Yatra.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for that, Prabhu. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Shri Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna.